to continue today, kind of a part two, a continuance of what we were speaking of yesterday regarding South America and this issue with Venezuela and the lies coming out of Washington, D.C. and New York about the reasons that led to the collapse of their economy back in 14 and 15, and also very curiously, why their regime change plans completely imploded and collapsed. I called it the greatest geopolitical miscalculation ever made by our government, and I stand by that. It absolutely is. That's why it got wiped off the headlines. Because it was just as bad for the quote-unquote D wing of our government as it was for the R wing. See, they both had designs on overthrowing that government. They just were debating the methods. And every person now running, there's been people out there that say, Tulsi this, Tulsi that. She wants the overthrow as much as anyone else does. That's what her masters have ordered her to do. That's where she's getting her marching orders. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to continue to go over the Constitution of Venezuela. But I want to start real quick with a couple of things that not many people know. There was a time in this country when those who called themselves Christians could be nothing but socialists. Now, if you're allowing the tribal apologists like Rush and Levin and all these Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe sponsored radio personalities define for you, if you're letting them define for you what socialism is, you're already lost the argument. Because that's called straw man. When somebody says, here is what something is, and here is me debunking it, that just completely takes away your ability to engage in any kind of mental banter back and forth. You don't let, and that's what makes radio so attractive for those types, is that they can control the horizontal, the vertical, and they can see who calls in and who doesn't, and they can make sure that all their enemies, the people that are attempting to take issue with what they say, are not heard, and only the most ignorant make it on so that they can defeat them and use them, hold them up as the representatives of what evil, terrible, horrible socialism is or isn't. Social democracy in South America has nothing to do with a whole bunch of people waiting on their government checks every month to go out and then waste it on wheels for their truck or whatever the hell else. That is not social democracy. I'm just going to read a small excerpt from this from August 9th of this year. The rise of industrial capitalism in the late 19th and early 20th century challenged nearly every concept that people used to explain the way the world worked. The proliferation of the wage system, the rise of the corporation, hyper-urbanization, and the shift from farm to factory left people questioning all they had known to be true. Factory workers worked longer hours and made less. 1 in every 26 workers in this country would be injured or maimed while working. Farmers worked more, planted more, harvested more, only to discover that they too made less. No matter how much they grew, the price for the products kept falling. African Americans had been promised freedom only to find themselves trapped in institutions meant to recreate their bondage. Success seemed uncertain while perpetual debt and perpetual poverty was certain. The world was growing more unequal. The world that most people had known was coming undone. And not all Christians were preparing for the second coming. Some believed they had played a central role in the social transformation that was to come. So they became, quote unquote, evil, terrible, horrible socialists. Capitalism was neither a natural force nor a supernatural one. This hand was not invisible, and it was certainly not the hand of God. Now here they go into the story of Cain and Abel, and those of you who understand the Bible know what we're talking about here. Now, what does this have to do with Venezuela? You see, unlike here, where our courts have ruled that corporations are people, they have ruled the exact opposite in Venezuela. Corporations are not people. They don't have the right of persons. This is a group called Fedecamaras, and it was I guess I should say, association of businesses that colluded to monopolize the control of the import of groceries and food. These people were well in the pocket of southern Florida and DC. And so they could create shortages of things that were not real to drive up the price. And I'm sure this isn't some giant surprise to the vast majority of my audience that this is the case. But we're going to continue in the Constitution, this new Constitution that was rolled out back in 2000 by the Bolivarian Revolution that did away with this and neutered these people. And this is what was so infuriating to the tribe, because it's a game they love to play. They absolutely love to play this game of financial manipulation. And they have it in their constitution in Venezuela that the monetary system is of, by, and for the people and accountable to the people, unlike our Fed. But let's continue. We had talked yesterday about how they defined, they meaning the Bolivarian Revolution, marriage as a man and a woman. That the family, the nuclear, actual family, is the crux, is the root of their country. And that their constitution was going to protect that. What we're going to talk about today is the financial aspect of democratic socialism and where the financing comes from and why it works when applied properly. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there ticking on the keyboard already about, oh, it's other people's money. You see, that's the brainwashing. That is the brainwashing. These big corporations in the U.S. have already told you that when they decided to claim what is the public property as their own personal property and then profited from it and then said, this is our money and you're taking our money and you're using it for blah, 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 blah. It was never yours to begin with, big corporation. You're not a person. Now, Article 113, monopolies shall not be permitted. What this meant was that they were going to make sure, and that sounds just like what it is. We don't have any constitutional prohibition against monopolies in our Constitution, but that's what Fede Commerce did. In 14 and 15, they left groceries rot in warehouses, leaving shelves empty so that the minions of DC could go and take pictures and people could go without. Yet in other places, strangely enough, we saw full grocery stores. Here is Max Blumenthal in one. Here's Abby Martin in another. Now, some say, well, that's just for the people that supported the government. How would that work? Do you think people in Venezuela walk around with necklaces with signs on that say, I voted for blah, 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 or I voted for this person or that person? And if you're a guy running the grocery store, all money is money, no matter who it is spending it, right? You see, they created fake shortages in certain regions so that they could get a hold of a narrative and put out a bunch of pictures so that they could get public groundswell support for some type of an invasion. And without people like Max Blumenthal, Abby Martin, Redfish, Gray Zone, Anya Parampil, all these people, and to some extent the Florida Maquis, they would have gotten away with it. They would have absolutely gotten away with it. But they didn't. Economic crime, speculation, hoarding, usury, the formation of cartels and other related offenses shall be punished severely in accordance with the law. And this is exactly what Nicolas Maduro and his government did. When you heard stories about they're seizing business owners and they're taking their stuff, yeah, that's why. See, they didn't tell you why they were being arrested, why their stuff was being seized. Now, this part here talks about Article 2, basically Chapter 8, the rights of native peoples. You see, there was no manifest destiny in South America. There was no government put in place that said, we have a right and a duty to God to completely exterminate the native populations of this region. There was no Fed. There was no Bilderbergers. There was no Rothschild. There was no Kennedys. Now, one thing that North Americans enjoy that maybe we shouldn't so much is the entertainment aspect that we have. We have so much energy for entertainment and games. The people in South America take that energy and just redirect it into their social sphere. They're not so much worried about the pursuit of nonsense like we are. So when you see the big marches and you see the people getting involved in their local communities, it's because they're not distracted like we are. And the tribe tries very hard to institute North American policies into South America. The only thing standing in the gap between that is the Bolivarian Revolution. The leader of Bolivia, the leader of Venezuela. Chavez decimated them for a decade. That's why they had to get rid of him. Article 129. In contracts into which the Republic enters with natural or juridical persons of Venezuelan or foreign nationality, or in any permits granted which involve natural resources, the obligation to preserve the ecological balance, to access to, and the transfer of technology on mutually agreed terms, and to restore the environment to its natural state if the latter is altered, shall be deemed included, even if not expressed. What this basically says is it's written into every contract, whether it's actually physically written into it or not, that it is the duty that no matter what business does to the environment, they must return it to its natural state when they're done. Now, can you imagine such a thing like that up here with the pipeline in the Northwest, the Keystone, or any of the big oil that have completely destroyed the skylines and the well-being and the health and the water and everything else in this country, having a constitutional duty to restore it? Now, Article 134, something a little bit different. Everyone in accordance with law has the duty to perform such civilian or military service as may be necessary for the defense, preservation, and development of the country, or to deal with situations involving a public calamity. No one, however, shall be subjected to forcible recruitment. What this means is no draft, no offensive wars, but in a time of need, in a time of invasion, it is your duty to defend the country. Public power. We talked about this briefly as usurped authority of no effect, acts are null and void. This is what random guy named Juan tried to put into effect. Because look, it's the one sentence article. He didn't describe all of the other 4 or 5 constitutional violations that he made, attempting to usurp himself the authority of the presidency, which is why it failed. Public officials shall not be permitted to accept employment, honors, or rewards from foreign governments. Period. Here, once again, it states, Article 151, that, well, I'll just read it, and you can understand it for yourself. In the public interest contracts, unless inapplicable by reason of the nature of such contracts, a clause shall be deemed included, even if not expressed, whereby any doubts and controversies which may raise concerning such contracts and which cannot be resolved amicably by the contracting parties shall be decided by the competent courts of the Republic, and shall not give grounds for any reason to give rise to foreign claims. This means that when all of those big oil companies, ConocoPhillips, Texaco, went down there, they knew going in that if their government decided, hey, you know what, you guys are screwing us and we got a problem with this, it's going to go before a Venezuelan court. They knew, they signed away their rights to have it decided by tribal controlled courts. Article 155 reiterates that basically. Now, here we go. Point 11 of Chapter 2. Regulation of central banking, the monetary system, foreign currency, the financial and capital market system, and the issuance and mintage of currency is the job of the national public power. No Fed. Now, as I spoke of yesterday, the entire theme through this Constitution is decentralization. The National Assembly, by a majority vote of its members, shall have the power to delegate to the state or municipalities certain matters under national competence in order to promote decentralization. Decentralization as a national policy must add depth to democracy, bring power closer to the people, and creating optimum conditions both for the exercise of democracy and for the effective and efficient fulfillment of government commitments. This is the part of evil, terrible, horrible socialism, social democracy, really, that nobody wants to talk about in North America. And that's why when you look down below this video and you see the t-shirts that say R 0%, D 0%, D voted t-shirts, that's what this is about. Governing ourselves again at the lowest possible level. The most important person politically in your life should be your mayor. It should be your school board. It should be your local tax assessor. Somebody you could see at the grocery store. Most powerful person in your life. And then less powerful the farther away you get. That's what our founding fathers had in mind. They just didn't express it quite well enough, unfortunately. Now, we're going to scroll down here a little bit. And once again, more decentralization. Municipalities can create parishes and smaller divisions. Once again, reiterating the term decentralization of power. You know, there was an article I wish I would have brought up. The vice president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, when everything was falling apart and things weren't going well, she came out and said, look, municipalities, we can't from Caracas fix everything for you. If you have a plan to fix things for yourself, you decide what you need done. Come to us, tell us what you need to do that plan, and we'll do everything we can to help you facilitate it. But we're not going to be the source. Can you imagine DC saying something like that? Once again, decentralization, Article 184. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a link to this so that you can go through and see everything that I've highlighted. Article 190 prohibits exactly what random guy named Juan did. Getting into bed with business, people in our government, having financial interest in those decisions made by government without giving up their investitures in it. It even says right here, deputies of the National Assembly are obligated to work on a full-time basis for the benefit of the people's interest. That's constitutional. Now, there is one part down here that, this is Article 228, election of the President of the Republic shall be by universal suffrage by direct and secret ballot in accordance with law. Meaning, the right that they grant their people to vote is how they elect president. Now, Article 237, the reason I have this outlined, this is what random guy named Juan didn't do. Annually, within the first 10 days following to installation of the National Assembly in ordinary session, the President of the Republic shall present personally to the Assembly a message by which will render account of the political, economic, social, and administrative aspects of its administration during the past year. He did no such thing. Judges are personally liable in Venezuela for their decisions. Can you imagine that here? Now, the most important thing I want to leave with today, we're already at 20 minutes, has to do with their right to overthrow their government. I have all of this outlined. Basically what this says is that the government has a duty and a right and a job to make sure that the economy functions in a way that promotes the well-being of the people, not the enrichment of a few. And that's outlined 299 through 305, 307, all of this. But the right to overthrow their government. Well, real quick, Article 319, the Venezuela Central Bank shall be governed by the principle of public responsibility, to which end it shall render an accounting of its actions, goals, and the results of its policies to the National Assembly in accordance with law. No Fed. They don't have to say audit the Fed. They don't have a Fed. Now, real quick, we're also going to talk about their take on weapons too, and that's a whole nother video. National Constituent Assembly. What this basically says, the original constituent power rests with the people of Venezuela, not the government. This power may be exercised by calling a National Constituent Assembly for the purpose of transforming the state, creating a new judicial order, and drawing up a new constitution. The people of Venezuela, true to their republican tradition and their struggle for independence, peace, and freedom, shall disown any regime, legislation, or authority that violates democratic values, principles, and guarantees or encroaches upon human rights. This is the method by which they govern, that they hold control and they hold authority. And this was done exactly in accordance with law. We don't have this. We don't have this, what I like to refer to as partitioned hard drive on our system, that things get so screwed up and so messed up that you don't have the ability to go back and start fresh. They do. And that's what happened in 2000. Many just can't really wrap their mind around an idea that a two-party system can be defeated. But there's a caveat. There's going to be upheaval. There's going to be heartache. There's going to be shortage. There's going to be problems. If you think Venezuela is this utopian paradise, it's not. Especially not now. But given the choice between comfortable evil and uncomfortable truth and goodness, even if it meant shortage, even if it meant heartache and it meant grief, when we stop defining success by material wealth and by what the media tells us or how full the grocery stores are, that's when we're going to truly understand freedom. Not until. And I guess I will just leave that there. Like, share, subscribe.